This painting is going to recreate a poster for the Alien movies. This randomly was on the other night and just thought it would make a great painting. This didn't make a great painting, unfortunately. I was shooting for a clip art cartoon style outdoor painting and it just didn't end up liking it at all, so we'll cover that up. This is Mars Black and one coat should do it. The canvas was raw, unprepped, no gesso, so you don't have to worry about that. It's a 5x5 inch. This is a 1/2 inch square brush with just warm tap water. And I'm using airbrush for the background. This is ultramarine blue and titanium white. It's a high flow airbrush paint. And you can easily add steam or fog using an airbrush, and the key is just to go in all different directions. Just be really erratic with it. Get closer, further, left, right, up, down, and you'll get that fog effect. If it's too uniform, you'll just have a glow, but you won't get that smoke. So just being erratic is how you get that. And I think I added 3 or 4 different layers, and every single time I'm just adding a little bit of white and slowly lightening that blue up and making it a bit brighter there in the bottom right corner. And then that'll be a good background. We can build everything on top of that. And once that's in, we can just block in the alien's basic shape. And whenever I'm painting, if it's something like this where it's a realistic type subject and the proportions need to be right, then I'll go ahead and sketch initially and just make sure that the proportions are good. But if you get too carried away with sketching, it can actually make things harder for you as opposed to being an aid. So for me, I like to keep things very simple. Basic shapes, basic color changes, just a little bit of sketching just to give me a guide, and then kind of freehand everything else with the paintbrush. It's easier to change and manipulate paint than it is pencil on top of whatever it is you're trying to do. If you're erasing, resketching, tweaking, changing, it's just gonna end up being a nightmare. But yeah, basic shape, basic color change, basic sketching, and then it can definitely help. So yeah, this is just Mars Black, a small round brush, and I prefer, everyone's different, but I prefer to find the darkest color within whatever painting I'm doing, or whatever the subject is, that shadow color. In this case, it's just pitch black, and blocking in the basic shape with that darkest shadow color, and then building highlights on top of that, because then you can really blend those highlights out, get smooth transitions of color. If you do it all at the same time and you're adding your darks next to your lights, a lot of times it's hard to blend those together and you'll get harsh color changes, which leads to a more cartoonish type style. And sometimes that's good, but for this one I want it to be pretty realistic. And to get realism, you need good blends. And in order to do that, I like to do this, where you add your darkest color for your blocking, and then you slowly lighten up that base tone to add your highlights, and then just you get lighter and lighter with each layer. And following suit, this is just a 3-color painting: black, blue, white. If you have phthalo blue or ultramarine blue, that's fine. I'm going to use primary blue, Mars Black, titanium white. Get a little bit of everything here. Get a dark blue gray, and then that'll be our basic coat to start building 3 dimensions. And really, that's what highlights do for you. That's how you get 3 dimensions, and you can start to build different shapes. So here I sketched out the basic head and the tail. Basic outline, and that's pretty much it. And then the rest, you just improvise and tweak and freehand it with the brush, and then that'll be a lot easier for you. But yeah, with this dark gray, I'm just going to map out the basic shapes. Looks like there's those appendages that stick out of the back. The basic torso, there's some ribs going horizontally behind the lower jaw. The head's going to catch light because it's so rounded, and then we're going to try to give a moist look to the skin. The tail is really bony, obviously with a blade at the tip. So that blade will be catching light, make that real defined. The top of the head will have to blend out well. Add small dots to give it a moist look, and we'll just slowly do that over layers. The brushes will get smaller, the paint will get brighter, and that's how we'll make this realistic. So here I just, with each layer, once we've added that dark gray blue, now I'm going to add a little bit more blue, a little bit more white, and with each layer I'm going to do that. A little bit more blue, a little bit more white, slowly get away from the black until the last stages it's going to be pretty much a pure white. You get a very light blue white. But here I'm using that highlight color to just map out where I'm going to get lighter areas. So there, that lower jaw is going to catch a lot of light. Tail, top of those bones on the tail, the blade of the tail, obviously going to catch a lot of light. The tops of those tubes or appendages that are coming out of its back, the upper shoulder, all those different areas are going to catch light, and so I'm just starting to build those shapes up with this highlight color. Your finger is a great blending tool. And people say not to do it because the oil's on your skin, but people say not to do a lot of things with art, and it's just not true at all. It's an awesome blending tool. So use your finger whenever you can, and then you can get really smooth blends, especially up on the head. So you can put some color, moisten your finger, rub that out, and you'll get a better blend than you can with a brush, because you don't have to worry about brush strokes at all with a fingertip. So you'll see me doing that a lot here. And then once you get that blend, then you can add little dots of color on top of that glow, and that'll give you a really good highlight and even a wet look. So that's how we're going to achieve that. So smooth areas like the tip of the tail and the top of the head, those smooth areas, you'll be using more solid color. Hopefully this makes sense, but you're gonna apply the paint in a solid way. There won't be a lot of gaps in those highlight colors and applications. You'll be using solid lines, things like that. But with the other parts of the body of this alien, when you're adding these highlights, try not to add smooth sweeps with your brush. Kind of pick it up, add little lines and dots and irregular texture. And then that's how you'll give the body kind of a bony textured appearance, and then the tip of the tail and the top of the head where it's real smooth. That's how you give it a smooth appearance. Solid highlights versus bumpy, irregular highlights can give two different appearances and texture. So here, all these little dots and streaks on the lower jaw, that's going to give a bumpy appearance. But up on the top, those smooth lines with not a lot of breaks, like up on the very top of the head, that's how you can give a smooth appearance. So hopefully that made sense. But this is a lighter tone. This is a really light baby blue, and I'm going to start adding the wet look to the top of the head and some of these really highlighted areas with this color. And again, on the body, I'm being real irregular with these highlights, but on the top of the head there, we want to blend it out. We want a nice smooth blend, clean lines. Here in the tip of the tail, it needs to be very clean lines because we want that blade to be smooth and sharp. And then as we work into the bones of the tail, get irregular again. A lot of dots and streaks, different directions, and then you'll get that texture. So it's just little things like that can make quite a big difference. You're going to add the teeth, make them bright. You want those to pop and catch attention from the viewer. Here and there, you can grab some of that darker color and go back in between your highlights and darken things up if you need to, or you can do cover-ups if you need to. Here I'm going to get some pure white. There may be a little bit of blue in there, but this is pretty much going to be a pure white. We'll start to add on main highlights. And I just want to see how everything's coming together at this point. This may be a little premature, but I'm trying to get a feel of things and make sure that I'm on the right track. That's why I'm doing this. So the top of the tail, the tail and the head are really what's going to make this scene. The rest is a secondary thing. The viewer's going to look at the face, tail, and then the body, and then the smoke. So, the top of the head has a really bright spot. The teeth are bright. The blade on the tail is very bright, so we're going to add some whites. And then the very tops of those spikes in its back, or those appendages, whatever you want to call them, that's going to have a little bit of white. And same thing with the other highlights. Keep it smooth and solid in your application of color on the smooth parts, and then the rough textured body parts. Use dots and streaks and irregular little markings, and then that's how you can still apply that color while keeping the texture right on the different body parts. But the thing is, with this bright white, once you get into that final highlight color, you cannot go overboard with it, or it'll lose its effect. You'll just make everything so bright that you can't even look at it, and everything becomes a highlight. Nothing really stands out, so just be very selective with that bright white. So there's just a couple spots I wanted it, and then put it away, be done with it. But it's easy to get carried away with highlights, especially when you're first starting out, but just be very, very selective. So here on the top of the head and some of the main body parts, but especially on the top and the side of that head, there's a blue tint to it, like a blue sheen. So I added a bit more blue to this mix, and then I'm doing a lot of just adding a little bit of blue, rubbing it in with my finger, adding some blue, rubbing it in with my finger, and that's how you can get almost like a transparent effect on that head. And that's how you can recreate the poster from the Alien movies. So thanks for watching. All the materials will be in the description, in the top pinned comment. Good luck on yours.